Hello! Welcome back to Chewed Gum. It is Tuesday, March 4th. I'm Alyssa. We have Arden here today, who got on here so fast, and we're so grateful.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always glad to fill in.
It's actually
so
been a
sorry
long
for
time
everyone who was
since
looking
you and
forward to
I-
Erica. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's been a really long time since we got to do a show together, so I'm always happy to yap with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited. I mean, I don't bring nearly as cool science facts, but, hopefully I'll say something worthwhile. We'll see.
You bring a level of spice, I think, that is not yet. Exactly. That is not Erica's vibe. So you bring it, it's just different. And I'm so excited about it. And although we'll have to
It'll be
get Erica on
jarring
an
for
episode.
people, I think.
Good.
Yeah.
Jarring.
Going from Erica to me, like, oh, whiplash. Okay.
That's so funny. Well, if you do want to call in, we have a few lines open. The number is 720-619-2288. And as a reminder, super chats of $5 or more will be read at the end of the show. And I think that's all the business, really.
Sounds right.
What's new with you, Arden?
I mean, nothing too different. I mean, I've got this new I'm building like a wall of enclosures behind me so I can show off more of like the reptiles that we actually work with and kind of like show off how they are as pets and stuff. So that's new and exciting, but I don't know. I mean, tell me if you have a similar experience, but I feel like it's been a really weird thing going through the last like month and a half because my personal life, my professional life are like good and continuously getting better. And I'm like, oh, like I'm really starting to feel confident in my skills. And like, I can really see like a good path forward for me. But now we have this new administration in who's like rolling back rights and rolling back, a lot of protections and potentially crashing the entire economy. I mean, like negative 1.5 GDP growth over the first quarter is pretty terrifying. So yeah, it's hard to be like excited about things that are going on when I'm like, I don't know how much of it is going to be. It feels like we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And we also have jobs that are closely tied to like what's going on. Like we don't really, our jobs are also intertwined with what's going on in the news and things. So there's like no real escape from everything that's happening. You're just like constantly engaged with the garbage.
Totally. Absolutely. It's painful, but we soldier on.
Yeah, we move, we move. And also I think like having this community helps in the process of like not getting too in my own little spiral about it. Like it helps that to hear other people also having these conversations and like flagging how insane it all is and be like, okay, like we're not crazy. This is actually bad news bears.
Yeah, it's very bad news bears and I'm terrified, but I feel like I know people who have personally felt the effects of everything that's happened already. Even my family lives on the Canadian border. My stepdad runs a like animal grain feed company. And so he's already been talking about how much the tariffs have been like making business hard because shipping things across and from the border, ingredients or things like used to be the best place to get it. And now it might not be. But I haven't personally felt it yet. So it's like, I don't know, I'm nervous. I'm scared. It's going to hit eventually, and it's going to burn.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It like you said it before, it's like waiting for the other shoe to drop where it's just a matter of time before we feel it in like a very personal way. But I mean, all of it feels, I don't know, all of it feels personal because I don't like when I think about the things that are happening to the people that I know that are actually affected and people that are at like the highest risk, like even you. I like these are my people, this is my community. And so like if what happens to these people is also affecting me because I love these people. And so,
Yeah.
you know, it's just bad. It's just bad. But you know, we have outlets like
Yep.
this and we can have really sometimes nuanced conversations and sometimes we have people who call and we just yell. And that's okay too.
It's all fun. It's all good fun. I love to yell at a dumb misogynist. Sometimes that's a really good time, you know? It's like I imagine what kickboxing feels like if you like doing sports.
Literally that. Literally that. I'm like, I would so yeah, no, I absolutely. This is like mental kickboxing and I love it. And I love
For
it.
sure, for sure.
So we have someone who called who I actually want to take first.
Okay.
Julie she called to talk about some comments that I had made about ADHD that she felt were ableist, and I wanted to talk about it. So I'm going to pull Julie on, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Hi.
Julie. Hi, Julie.
Hi, Alyssa. Hi, Arden. You're both very incredible women. I want you to know you're awesome.
Thank you so much. I want to know what I said because now I'm really nervous because I am never trying to be any of those things and I'm always learning.
I know.
So I'm curious what I said.
And that's all I'm trying to
what
say.
did I
I'm
say?
not trying to be mean. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Like
So-
we're all learning together all the time. So I'm happy to hear
awesome.
everything you have to say.
I learned too. Okay. So this is a reference to a conversation that you and Jimmy actually had on an episode of Cus I Wanna. And it was started with self-diagnosis, blah, blah, blah. But then Jimmy had said something to the effect that when somebody tells them they're autistic or have ADHD, the first response he has is, well, what are you doing? What are you working? What are you doing to improve yourself, right? And when I received my diagnosis, nobody ever said that that was a requirement, that I had to work on myself. You know, that's like a personal choice. I feel like my diagnosis gave me a better understanding of myself, and I want to be able to fit in a neurotypical world, not as a deficit, but as all in my wonderful neurodivergent ways. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then when there's specifics that you said, like you talked about people who are chronically late and how, oh, great, you're aware that you're chronically late, then you need to change that, which I kind of think is either a misinformed or misunderstood idea about the neurological underlinings of both of these conditions, and it kind of minimizes the complexities of all the different ways in which people present their diverseness. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Sure.
I could tell you horror stories on time.
Yeah. I think, well, and like I have ADHD, and time blindness is like a huge problem for me. Like I'm no stranger to being late. And really the point in me saying that is at the end of the day, I agree that like I would love to live in a world where there is a better understanding of the needs of neurodivergent people, but right now, like you kind of have to, like I know that I'm going to be late to most things, so like I'll put things in my calendar for 15 minutes earlier than they need to be. So that's what I mean by like what are we doing to like get ahead of it, because we do live in like a world fit for neurotypical people. And it's also like I'll use lateness as the example because I feel like that's easiest. Like if I make a lunch plan at 1:00, it's not really fair to make my ADHD and like my time blindness the problem of the people who are sitting there if I know I can like put a system into place where I can set my schedule to be earlier or whatever and like just do my best. Like it's not going to be perfect every time, but it's also like not something that's so out of, and like this is me speaking from my own personal experience. Like everybody's going to have a different experience with it, but I think it's sort of like I've said before, awareness creates choice. It doesn't create change. So like being aware of something is one step of how you can be responsible for your actions. And having things like ADHD or autism doesn't mean you're less responsible for your actions. You might just have like less of a consequence because people are understanding and they understand like time blindness and the things that like are different about you and your schedules, but you're still responsible for your actions. Does that make sense?
Oh, entirely. I mean, it's not so much I'm trying to say that things are excuses, but being very late diagnosed, I definitely view my life as at least I have an explanation. Do you know what I mean? So now that I have an explanation,
and that's life changing.
It is. It completely is. I mean, I lost so much shame and guilt and self-hatred just by receiving that diagnosis, because now I understand, and and that's where I'm coming from. And I understand that you don't want it. You try to make the negative impacts of ADHD affect your life in the most minimal way you possibly can, right? But then there's, I feel like you've missed a lot of the awesome qualities that ADHD can bring about. Like, I mean, even your choice of career, that is a completely, dopamine charged career, and which is awesome because you're probably great at it at your job. But that's part, and I think that can attribute to your ADHD too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's such like a big nuanced thing, and I'm not a therapist, and I'm not like I don't want to be like the end all be all of all things about ADHD, but I agree, like there are things. I was only diagnosed a couple of years ago and I'm 31, and so I was diagnosed as an adult, and that it's every couple of like months I learn about a new thing that is super common with people with ADHD, and I'm like, oh my God, like had I known this, I would have, like, so many parts of my life would have been so much easier. And you're totally right. There are things about my life and my job that are literally like, because I have ADHD, I'm able to like do these things and whatever. So it's just such a dynamic, nuanced thing that we have to have space for the way that like everybody is gonna receive it and deal with it. And like another example of like where I think personal responsibility comes into play is for me, like if I open my refrigerator and I don't immediately see something that is easy for me to eat, I get very overwhelmed, and many times I will legitimately skip meals because I'm so overwhelmed. And it's just like a silly thing that like Arden's like, you understand. It's
such a deep relation, yeah. Oh my God.
Oh my God. And it like makes me feel silly in the moment.
It's so real.
It's so real.
And I get that because I'm the same way. I'll open the refrigerator, shut it, walk away.
Yeah. And so like as a result, it's real. It's like a big struggle, and it's like many times really not fun. Like I'm not fueled for the rest of my day. Like later in the day, I'm going to binge eat something bad, like things like that. So like in the spirit of like personal responsibility, there's things that I bought for myself, like protein powders and like stuff to tie me over so that I'm not so starving I make bad choices after that. Things like that. Like, so my whole like long and short of it is it's all going to be super nuanced, and everybody's experience of it is going to be so different. I think it is sometimes it's helpful for people to like kind of diagnose themselves and find systems that work for other people who have ADHD, and like if that's what helps make your life easier, by all means. But I do think it is worth a professional diagnosis so that you can get like real professional guidance, because ADHD and autism look so different for every person.
It's like the entire spectrum, nobody is at the same grasp spot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's also still really nice when people share, like, I didn't know that Arden, like, you had the same thing with like looking at the refrigerator and being like, I have no idea what to do.
And I'll close it, walk around the living room and come back and look again, and then be like, nope, still nothing. Like as if something changed in the time I walked around. Right? No. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't know Arden shook her head that in agreement. It is very, it's frustrating. It is completely frustrating. But in spirit with what you were saying about a true diagnosis and treatment, I also think you guys like relied heavily on free online resources that are available to everybody. And I think that also kind of minimizes and the complexities of it all, because I mean there might be thousands of resources you can get online, but nothing is going to compare to an individualized working with an individualized plan set up by a medical professional. And and this is I'm not saying you're privileged or anything like that, but it's just like where you are compared to where I am in life, right? And I have no problem where I am in life. You know, I'm perfectly content. So, but there is a difference in the actual resources that you may have available to you, whereas I do not have those available services. And I think a lot of people don't. And so it's not a privileged part, it's just the way the system runs. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I think acknowledging that's the difference is important, you know, because then it's just not, it's saying, it's giving it the respect it needs to be more complex in the solution. Or
for sure. And there's going to be and there's going to be things that like it's important that people have resources in all of the different scale that's available to them. Like I said, I would rather if you feel like you suspect you have ADHD and you go use a free resource and it tells you that you have it, and all that does is validate, okay, maybe I'm going to go online and see how do other people who have ADHD deal with opening the refrigerator and not seeing food options in there for them. Like, and if that makes that one thing easier for you, that's amazing. It's never going to replace going to like an actual therapist, going through the diagnosis process and getting real support in like a clinical environment, but not everybody has access to that. So any way that people can like make their lives easier, because really that's all this is like how can we make our own lives easier, make it easier for us to interact with the rest of the world that might not be neurodivergent. Like how do we just make that easier and more harmonious for everyone involved? That's really all I'm interested in. So like if a free resource does that for you, then amazing. If that's not enough and you want support from a professional and that's available to you, that's also amazing. And like I think getting a professional diagnosis is always preferred. And I think people know that. Like if you can get a real professional to give you a diagnosis, it is a different experience.
You can seek out you can seek out different, more specified, because I was misdiagnosed with mental health for 30 years, and
wow.
They had me thinking I was crazy, and I had to do the search to find out what the fuck was wrong with me, in a sense, and luckily I did, and then my diagnosis was also validated by the medical diagnosis too. But yeah, it's just it's hard, and even I won't say discriminated, but it was kind of all my kids are also neurodivergent. One who functions at a very low level, she has Down syndrome too, And so her function is low. And then I have this amazing son who didn't even graduate middle school, who is now at Purdue going after his professorship or whatever you call it, trying to be a professor.
Wow.
And then my other daughter with ADHD, and she had a lot of depression and ending life ideations. And, you know, and my diagnosis helped her get diagnosed, and now she has a better understanding. And like you, around the same age, and she is able to implement changes and skills that improve her life too. And so that's my feral cool. Neurodivergent life.
Yeah, and like I'm happy that you were able to also get a diagnosis and find ways to make your life easier, and you know, it's tough. It's a hard thing, especially when you get a diagnosis later in life and you're like, okay, that actually explains so much. Yes. And I'm glad that you've had that experience now. And I'm sure it like helps you relate better to your children too, when they're trying to navigate things. And now like you're sort of like in a similar situation where you're navigating new challenges or just navigating them differently.
Exactly. I just don't want you to, in a sense, I don't want you to like put that, put your ADHD in your mind as a disability. Do you know what I mean? I know there's challenges, but it's an advantage in so many other ways. I mean, who wants to be normal, right? That's what I think about it.
I also feel like if somebody wants, I feel like I know a lot of people though who would argue that like they really do feel like it's a disability, and that like I've heard some people get truly bothered when they're told not to think of it as a disability, because they're like, sure, I can see the advantages that it has, but like the drawbacks vastly outweigh the perceived advantages that I could get. And so I don't know, I hear what you're saying, but I think it's just kind of, there's multiple takes and perspectives on this, you know, from people all over the ADHD and kind of neurodivergent spectrum.
Yeah, no, yeah. I realize that it helps identify that it's a more serious problem than just nothing, right? That's why the disability label is needed at times, right?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's interesting because it's a diagnosis that has like a general list of things to look for, but it's so deeply personal in the way that it affects us. And like there are some people in the chat now that are saying like my ADHD is literally a disability to me, and it like affects so much of the way that because we do live in a world that doesn't make accommodations for people being neurodivergent. It's like it does feel you're just operating totally differently. So, you know, in some ways, I guess creates.
I meant. Go ahead. I'm sorry again. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, in some ways, it creates opportunity and it creates like a different way of thinking, and that's amazing. But in other ways, it's like, unfortunately, someone said, is anyone else weirded out that Alyssa's on the right? And I didn't realize they were talking about the screen. I thought they were talking about like on the right politically. And I was like, what? Speaking of ADHD, I got really nervous and I saw that for a second. Oh my God. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. I don't even remember what I was saying. Jeez. Whatever.
No, you're fine. Yeah. And I love these conversations where you can, make a sharp left and still everyone still travels with you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't, and this is talking about Jimmy, and I don't mean to, and I'm not trying to talk badly, because it hurts my feelings for him that he gets so offended when, he tells somebody he's autistic, and they give this character that clearly is not who he is as an autistic person, with intellectual disabilities, etc. And it's like, I wish he wouldn't let it affect him so harmfully, because that's clearly not the case. Logically, that's what I would think. And I feel that he disparages those who are actually at that level for just existing. It's like one people shit on him, so he turns around and kind of shits on the other, and rather than being an advocate and saying, you know, more like, well, yeah, these are the people that are neurodivergent that don't even have a voice to stand up to anyone else. And I think he kind of dismisses them in a way, and I don't think that's very advocate.
I don't. So I'm not super comfortable with us like kind of discussing
Talking about
how Jimmy performs around the neurodivergent community without Jimmy here. I feel like that's something for him to talk about. So let's not get into that if we can help it.
Okay, that's fine. Then, yeah, I just wanted you to have, remember the neurological underlinings, and I guess the word disability, how I don't want you to view it. I don't want, you could be disabled, but that doesn't mean the disability is negative per se. Does that make sense?
I agree. Like, disability is not a dirty word. That's why I was saying earlier, exactly. I think it's okay to claim disability, because it's like, just like it's okay, like fat's not a dirty word. It's okay to be fat. It's also okay to have a disability. Like, these are just facts about people. They're not morally charged, or they shouldn't be anyway.
Yeah. I agree.
And I agree. Everybody on whatever level is just trying to do the best they can with what they got at the moment.
Totally. And I think sometimes it's good to just validate where people do have real struggles, and it doesn't feel like a fun time to not be able to figure out what to eat or to not be able to get somewhere on time. Like, there was a time where I literally missed an entire job interview because I was late and I didn't realize I was. And it's like, that is not great. And if I could not have had that experience in that way, I would have loved that. But unfortunately, my spicy brain did its thing, and that job was not meant for me.
Exactly. And see, and I've been fired from so many jobs over my life. I mean, for being late, even though my performance was above average, so I could kind of wiggle my way into being late and still keeping a job. But ultimately, I get fired for it, and that just. And I didn't have an understanding of why I was late. And so people looked at me like I was an idiot. I had received so many negative, hurtful comments and name calling. It was just, it's amazing. I wish I could go back and tell all of them now, but you can't. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you found answers, and I'm glad that you called in to talk about this. And yeah, we appreciate you calling in and listening to the show.
Okay, yes, great show. One of my favorites. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Have a good rest of your night.
You too. Bye. Bye, Arden.
Bye. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to have that conversation in the top.
Totally. Yeah, I didn't really feel comfortable jumping in for 90% of that, because it seemed like it was directly in reference to something that I didn't see and wasn't there for, and I was like, I have no clue what's being discussed right now.
Yeah, I remember vaguely having that conversation with I remember someone said to move my mic closer to the dog to get more snores. We're not going to do that, but I'll move it closer.
Oh my God.
Better. But yeah, I do remember having that conversation a little bit, but I don't remember all the details of it. But whatever. I'm happy to listen to other people's experiences of what we share, and also everyone's experiences of their own diagnosis is going to be so different. So
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you going to do? Anyways, okay, so we should look at shows for this coming week. Let me pull them up, actually. I'll pull them up on my phone. One of the dogs is barking. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Someone is scary today. Look at her little arms.
So mad. Oh.
I know, she's so mad. Okay, sorry. Usually this is when I'm baby girl, and Eve usually reads these, so I don't usually have them up. But okay.
okay.
All right. So
I can pull it up if you
what's
want.
today? I got it. Okay, so
Got it.
tomorrow, got it. We have the Sunday show tomorrow.
No.
Is this right?
What are you looking at? Tomorrow's Wednesday. Tomorrow's the hangout.
I'm looking at the 5th. Wait, maybe this is.
Are you on the wrong month? It'll often like bring you onto the calendar in the month of August if you have it bookmarked from when we first sent those out. So I'm gonna check if you're on the right month on the bottom.
Maybe I'm looking at a screenshot.
Oh?
So maybe I'm looking at oh yeah, this is definitely a screenshot of the wrong week.
Oh yeah.
Or wrong month.
I have it up here if you want. Tomorrow is Matt and Jimmy on the Hang Up. Josie and Dr. Ben on TACIS on Thursday. We don't have Sunday show or After Dark scheduled yet, but next Monday will be Shannon Q and R and Raw. And then Eve will be here next week with Roxanne Felix. So yeah, that'll be awesome. I'm so excited. I've been like advocating to get Roxanne on the show forever because I think she's such a perfect fit. I think she's going to do so good on the show. And I'm really excited to see what kind of calls you guys get. So yeah, that'll be really cool.
Yay. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
And what else? Oh, also go on the Patreon, patreon.com/calltheline. There's lots of fun content there. And you can support the show and everyone who's the hosts and editors and all the things. So go to the Patreon/calltheline. And also, again, super chats $5 or more at the end. And I think that's all the announcements. Do you have a call that you would prefer to take? I don't know if you're in Call in Studio, actually, so I don't even know if you're looking at them.
Yeah. I don't know. Either of the bottom two look good to me, if you have a preference of one of those. Or whatever you want to do is also cool.
Ooh. Let's take Flamingo.
Okay.
Because it's a theist, and so I'm curious. We always like to prioritize theists anyway. So, Flamingo, hello.
Hello. Do you hear me?
What would you... Yep. Yes, we could hear you. What would you like to chat about today?
I see a lot of like kink positivity about like really weird kinks like cuckolding and BDSM, and I don't really understand the appeal. So I would like it like explained to me. I think it's really weird.
That's okay. Nobody's forcing you to do it.
Yeah, totally. There's no... Sorry, I don't know why the dogs are barking so much. You don't have to have an understanding of why it's interesting or fun for people, and you don't have to engage with it really at all. But when any sex act is consensual and safe for the people involved in it, then there's no real harm in engaging in those activities. So, you know, even if it doesn't apply to you, like let's say you really, really didn't like onions, doesn't mean that other people can't have onions, you know? And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with onions and liking them. You just don't like them. Does that make sense?
But I think the onion analogy is different because things, you know, like strange kinks like that are like kind of humiliating, I think. I don't know. They're kind of weird and degrading. I don't know.
Well, I think that part of that is the appeal for a lot of people. I think there's something that people get out of like an exchange of a power dynamic. That's why often you'll see that people in like really powerful positions are into being submissive in certain sexual contexts, because there's like that sort of experience of a power exchange of, you know, the taking the position that they're told is naughty and bad and taboo helps kind of add a level of excitement to the sex thing for a lot of people. So, I mean, but, you know, like Alyssa's saying, I think the onion analogy is great because it's like, why do you like onions and I don't like onions? I do like onions, but just for the sake of the metaphor, like, nobody knows, right? I'm sure there's some reason. Like, you could probably find some childhood forming event around eating onions that might be the reason why you really like them and I don't. But at the end of the day, who really cares? We're here if people like it and it's consensual and safe, I can't see what real objections there are other than I don't want to do it, which is like, okay, cool, then don't do it.
Then don't, yeah. And also, the people sexually, like Arden was saying, really like things that are taboo. So there's even been a correlation between political party and the type of kink that they're interested in. So people who are registered as Republicans are more likely to be interested in like group sex and like things that are literally the opposite of what they typically would be engaging in as being like traditional conservative people. And people who are registered as Democrats are more interested in role playing traditional roles in the bedroom. And like it's just about experiencing things that are taboo. I think for some people, sex is a really vulnerable thing for everyone. And for some people, adding some level of novelty and interest that is so unlike what their regular life is helps them kind of disconnect from what their real life is and be in the moment. So, but there are people who are really turned on by humiliation, really turned on by degradation. It just depends on, what their silly little brain thinks is fun and taboo. But as long as it's consensual, like everyone involved agreed that this is what they wanted to do and everyone is safe in whatever that practice is, it doesn't really matter.
But like, why can't they have more, I guess, vanilla sex? Like why does it need to, why does it require things of that nature? Like, I don't know if
vanilla sex also is different for everybody. Like for some people, doing anything that's not missionary is vanilla. And for other people, that's not the case. So it's really like, are you trying to understand what the mentality is, or are you trying to like police how people are having sex?
I mean, if it's between two consensual adults, like, it can't be illegal, but it's really weird. And I guess I'm trying to form my opinion on it a little more. Right now, I still think it's really bizarre. I don't know.
I think it's fine if you think it's... Or sorry, go ahead, Alyssa.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's fine if you think it's weird. You're allowed to think it's weird. Nobody's telling you have to think it's cool or approve of it. It's just, like you said, if it's between two consenting adults, then there's a lot of things that I don't understand that other people do. I hate sports. I have no idea why our country rallies around the Super Bowl. I think it's the dumbest fucking event, like, imaginable to me, but people like it. Who cares? Like, I don't have to understand it to get that clearly. I'm a person who doesn't experience the thing that a lot of people like. Like, just like when I'm cooking, like adding red pepper flakes to my chicken isn't required, but I like it. It's just something I like to do. Like, I don't think anyone's saying that kink is required for these people. They're not going to like waste away and die of starvation because they didn't get any kinky sex, but like, it's a thing that they like. It makes their life better or more exciting. Why, there's no reason to, there's no like justified reason to be concerned.
Yeah, why deprive yourself if at the end of the day it's harmless and it's something fun and interesting for you? There are people in the chat talking about ice cream flavors. Like, why is chocolate a flavor that's offered if there is vanilla ice cream? Well, because like some people just like chocolate, and some people like Rocky Road, and some people will have Rocky Road ice cream for years and years and years, and then one day they'll be like, I actually, what sounds good? A nice vanilla. That sounds delicious. And like, not every time that these people who are interested in people who are typically interested in kinky sex or whatever, that doesn't mean every single time that they're having sex like that. Like like sex is so dynamic, and you can have all different kinds of sex at all different points in your life too. So, as long as it's safe, it's okay that you think it's strange. As long as you're not trying to take away like that freedom and opportunity for people to explore the things that are fun and interesting for them.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't think of it as that restricted, like just missionary, but there's a point, like there's a line drawn where it gets like, I don't know, I can't wrap my head around it. It's just, I don't know. But I mean, you can't make it illegal because it's between two consenting adults. So yeah.
I guess I'm trying to understand, like, what, like, is there something you want to happen? Like, are you thinking that there's a line, and like that if we could all agree that after this you should be like arrested for having a certain kind of sex, even if it harms nobody, or like, I'm just trying to understand, like I get thoroughly that you don't understand it and that you think it's weird, and I think that's totally fine. Nobody's forcing you to do those things or to like those things. So I guess I'm just trying to understand, like, what the concern is, or are you just trying to understand, or or is there like a prescription you want from some sort of agreement on this?
No, definitely not arrested, but you know, maybe to convince people not to engage in a lot of these acts. I don't know, and also mostly to understand. You know, I don't want to be too judgmental. I just wanted to have more, I guess, information on this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're muted, Alyssa.
Oh, sorry. I don't think that we need to convince anyone to not have the kind of sex that they want, because I don't think it makes a difference. Like, and also, you could have a full conversation with someone and think you convinced them to never have kinky sex ever again, and then they can go into their bedroom, close the door, and do whatever the hell they want. You know, like, there's no reason to minimize the experience that people want to have. And I think, you know, come from a place of curiosity and not judgment. Like, it's interesting that people want to have all different kinds of sex, and there are things that just turn them on. Like, our arousal brain is really interesting, and like that's what got me into doing this whole job. Like, the way that human beings approach arousal and like how dynamic all of that is like fascinating. And so when we approach it from an angle of curiosity, it's like, wow, look at all of the things that human beings are interested in. I'm not interested in that, but like someone else is super interested in that. Good for them. Let them enjoy the things that they want to enjoy. Like, if they are a Rocky Road ice cream onion eating person who wants to have kinky sex, and I am vanilla ice cream, absolutely no onions ever for the rest of my life, and vanilla sex also, missionary only, that's also fine. Like, it doesn't actually matter. Like, and it's one of those things where, Flamingo, if it makes you feel weird, don't engage with it. Like, that's not porn that you need to watch. That's not activities you need to partake in. Like, if it makes you uncomfortable, then you don't have to engage in it at all. Like, it's your life, and you can do whatever you want with it. However, you also can't be judging and policing everybody else's sexual behaviors, because at the end of the day, they're harmless, and it doesn't really matter if it makes you personally uncomfortable. It doesn't make you any less safe. It doesn't affect you in any personal way beyond making you uncomfortable if and when you engage with it, which you don't have to.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought at this point. I don't really know how to respond without repeating myself. Yeah, I mean,
right.
I think I learned some stuff from what you said.
Cool. Yeah, and if you don't think that we have to like actually like legally or socially police people, then I don't really have a problem with you thinking something's weird. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you're allowed to have thoughts in your brain. That's allowed.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
approach from curiosity and not judgment in all areas of life, and life gets a lot more interesting and a lot less scary.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I'll take note of that.
Okay,
Thanks,
well,
Flamingo.
thank you, Flamingo.
Appreciate-
Thanks.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Okay.
I thought that was going to go so much worse than it did. I was
Me
waiting.
too. I know. I feel like you were waiting to pull the punch, and you were like, "But legally."
Yeah, I was ready. I had like 3 different directions I was ready to go, but he didn't step in any of the traps. He's just a curious person. So cool.
I guess, yeah, that was funny. Okay, let's see. Oh, I want to pull Sarah in, and I know she's really nervous, but
Okay.
I've been waiting to talk to her for weeks, so I'm really happy she called. So let's see. Sarah.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah. I'm so glad you finally called. Promise is gonna be so
I'm
jealous.
so nervous.
I'm so happy you finally called. What do you want to talk about today?
So I have been arguing with Trump supporters about women's rights, and I'm going to just be fully honest, like I am in California. It is a blue state, but I'm tired of people being like, "Oh, you have nothing to worry about. You know, you're in a blue state." And I'm like, "No, but I do. Like, I'm a woman. I am on state insurance. Like, I'm worried for my future." So I just wanted to know, should I continue arguing with these people, or should I just give up? Because sometimes it's like talking to a brick wall.
Yeah, it definitely does feel that way a lot. It's hard, and because I feel like I don't even have the answer for this in my own life, because I live in New York, which is also a blue state, and so like I hear that kind of thing every now and then. And even earlier today, I have relatives in Canada who were sort of like neutral / in support of Trump. They were like, I don't know, let's see what happens type of vibe. And I was like, And now that all the tariff stuff is happening and like they're not going to be carrying a lot of US products and stuff like that, they're freaking out. And I kind of am like, did you think that we were kidding when we were expressing concern?
Yeah.
Like, were we not in the same place for the past year listening to him campaign? Hello? So I don't know. It's hard because I actually feel very like in the same boat as you. I'm actually curious, Arden, what you have to say because you're in a red state.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone is safe, first of all. I think we've already heard tons of stories about people from, various institutions and like organizations having in blue states and red states having like funding pulled or having groups canceled or stopped. So like that is already boot. It's already happening all across the country in every state in various institutions. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think this is like the golden question. Like you can never really know if it's worth it's like always like an individual assessment about like how much energy you have, I think, and strategy. Cause like a lot of people see what we do here and they want to model that. And I'm always like, well, if you don't have an audience watching you, probably don't do that, because I don't think yelling at people is particularly productive. But it is convincing when there's an audience watching, So yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. The generation before us fought for as long as they could, and they carried the torch and then passed it on. And that's kind of what my mentality has always been. Like, fight and argue and have the discussions for as long as you can, put in as much energy as you can, and take care of yourself along the way. But when you're ready to be done, like, I think, that's just the cycle of activism and progress, and is continually in that revolving door of people like giving it their all and then being like, man, this is fucking exhausting. I want to quit. So
yeah. And I think it's like weirdly similar to the advice that I gave the previous caller, like approaching from curiosity and not judgment will probably be helpful. Like I always, like for people that I actually really, like, love them and enjoy them as people, and they voted for Trump, I'm like, how did we get there? Because I know that you're a person who cares about people outside of yourself and people who look and act exactly like you. So this feels very unaligned. And in conversations where you can be curious about, like, how did you get here, actually? Because doesn't make sense. Maybe that will lead you to have like a shift in, because what I also think is interesting, and I know that everyone has had this experience in some way. Having conversations with people who voted for Trump is confusing because many times they're operating from a completely different set of facts. So we could be talking about something and it's like literally we're on different planets talking about the same topic, completely different perspectives of what went on, completely different set of facts. So you just gotta, as best you can, have those conversations in like the healthiest way for you. And then, like Arden said, then you like tap out when you have to.
Yeah, that makes sense. And because sometimes I feel bad because I feel like I'm privileged to kind of tune out the news, but at the same time, I'm like, no, I need to protect my mental health. So don't watch the news
Absolutely.
if it's going to trigger me,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I burnt out like multiple times. And honestly, I think if you just kind of, take care of yourself and keep at it, the thing that always keeps me coming back is that I feel like I can't not say anything. I'm like, I'm so angry when I see stuff going on. I'm like, okay, I have to get back into gear. I have to figure out how I can tolerate both these feelings that I have and do something. Because if I'm not doing something, that's when I personally feel the worst. Because I'm like, just kind of, you're just a victim to the throes of the system. And I'm like, I will exert some agency if it is the last thing I do, against all odds. I'm going to try to make things work, but yeah.
And you got to take care of yourself too. Like you can't, if you're depleted, then you have nothing to give other people, and like the activism that you'll provide is not going to be what you're going to want it to look like if you're so exhausted and depressed or feeling hopeless and all these things. Like it's not going to lead to any kind of activism that you're going to want to participate in. So, I think leading from the right intentions of wanting to be involved and helpful and caring about other people will make you successful in all of it to the best of your ability. And also don't let anyone tell you that you're fucking crazy. I was saying before, that's why I love this community, because I feel like sometimes when you're in groups of people who keep telling you that it's like whatever Trump derangement syndrome, whatever the fuck they say, and that we're overreacting and whatever, like it does make you feel like, am I overreacting? Am I being crazy? And then I'm back in this kind of community and I'm like, I'm actually not crazy, and everyone else is fucking crazy. So, like I don't want to like create an echo chamber, but also like sometimes I need the echo chamber to like almost regulate my nervous system. It's like I feel like okay in this group.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel the same way. Like I'm a relatively new viewer, watcher, listener of the line, because the guy that I'm dating actually got me into it. So shout out to Bryce. I know he's in the chat right now.
Cute.
But yeah, but this has been super healing for me. So I definitely agree that I like this community, and I'm definitely going to be tuning in more. And I feel less nervous now that I actually called. So,
yay!
Oh yeah.
So glad.
We're not so scary.
It's like, yeah, and it's like once you start talking, it's like it's so much easier. It's always the very beginning that feels very scary.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here and in this community.
I do want to say if Promise is somehow watching, I'm sorry if you're jealous that I talked to Alyssa, but maybe one day I'll talk to you as well.
Well, now you called in once, and now you know it's like super easy. So you'll have to call in again, and
Yes.
talk to Promise too. She's gonna be so jealous, but whatever. She missed out.
I can't believe
And
I got the
to speak to
long-awaited
Sarah.
call. Feel so
Yes,
lucky.
you did. Yes, you did. But yeah, I'm so happy you're in this community, and everyone loves you and is so happy you called. I see them in the chat, and they're all so happy. So you have to call back, and I'm glad that this has been healing for you, because I know like community is one of the cutest, sweetest, most wholesome things that human beings do for each other. So any way that we can find that is just like gorgeous. So I'm glad you found this one, and we're all happy to have you.
Thank you.
All right, Sarah, we'll talk to you
Awesome.
soon, and I'll talk to you in the chat. And
All
I
right.
can't wait to tell Promise that you called. Bye, Sarah.
Great. Thanks,
Bye.
Sarah.
Oh, yay.
I think you're totally right about that Trump supporters are like operating in like a completely different reality of facts. Like just like their information ecosystem is so detached from ours. It is one of my best friends, Lauren, she said it once, and I love this. She was like, there's so many layers of what's wrong here. We just need to start you over. You're going back to being a baby. We're starting from scratch. We're going to raise you again because we fucked up somewhere along the way.
Oh, I wish I could like Matrix clean slate them sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's
Your
just
brain
like, or not
isn't
Matrix.
so corrupted.
What's the Men in Black, where they have the pen and they just like click it and it wipes their memory?
Yes.
I would like to do that sometimes, because it's like I think sometimes when I'm in those conversations where I'm like, okay, actually, we literally don't live on the same planet. So like, I don't think I can have this conversation. That's when I'm like, this feels like a job for someone else. I don't think I could do this. Not for me. Someone else's journey, perhaps. No.
Hey, totally fair.
Yeah.
Every time I see a super chat pop up, I keep going over to add it to like the list, thinking I'm producing today, but I'm not producing. So I'm like, oh my God, it's so cool. I just get to sit here and participate.
Oh my God, see, you're in baby girl position. You get to just be on the show.
I know. I steer all the time. It's so fun. I'd love to be in the passenger seat. I mean, like, genuinely, I'm way more of a passenger princess, so this is more fun.
I love it.
Or
I love it.
Don't like put me on screen. That's also an option. Just let me go back to my little hovel so I can dress like a gremlin with my messy hair and baggy shirts.
I mean, literally, if you gave me 5 minutes to get on the show the way that you had 5 minutes to get on the show, I would be like, I actually can't do that for mental health reasons. I need to like mentally prepare to do pretty much anything. So you just like jumping on in there. I am almost
always that way.
Mm-hmm.
No, I totally get that. I am this even sometimes like a day's warning is not enough. Like if a friend is like, hey, do you want to go out? And I'm like, I'm going to be out late in less than 24 hours. Like I emotionally can't handle it. So yes, I just happened to be at my computer editing anyway. I was working for the line anyway. So when Jimmy was like, can you do it? I'm like, okay, turn on my lights, make sure nothing else is needed.
So funny. I also am similar where like when I get a plan that's last minute, I literally think about, okay, like if I'm sitting in my bed right now, I'm like, how many hours in my bed do I have? Like how many hours in my house before I don't get to be in my house anymore? And it stresses me out.
Right. Yep.
Okay, we have 2 more calls. We could definitely.
You want to close the line?
Yeah, we probably should. And maybe we could get through these last 2. We do have a theist who called, and we like to prioritize the theists.
Okay.
So let's pull Luke on. Okay. Luke, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Luke. Yes, we can.
Hey.
Okay, do I sound good? Any echo or any ambient like effects going on, by the way? I'm in a new rig, so I want to make sure that sounds good.
Audio is very crisp, actually. Thank you.
It is. It is. It is. What did you want to talk about today?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of go off of the prominent topic, which was, should women submit to men? And it's important for me to understand what exactly you mean by the question.
I think,
Well,
go
go ahead. No, go ahead, Alyssa.
I was going to say that I think when I think of, I mean, I didn't write the question, but usually when we think about women submitting to men, it's, it's like having men make the majority of decisions and having women follow suit with the things that they decide. Arden, do you have anything?
Yeah, I guess I would
fundamentally that.
No, not that. That's pretty much what I was going to say. I mean, I did write the title. It's not always meant to be like, you don't have to abide by the title. It's just kind of a prompt to get people to call in like you're doing. But yeah, I mean, I pretty much the same thing. Kind of like a biblical submission is kind of what we're referencing. And that was my intention anyway.
Yeah, well, I guess my take on it, I guess, is that it's not necessarily down to what specific gender/sex, whatever you prefer to elect for those words, are. It's the main thing of there should be a system, or there should be a chain of command whenever there's certain like command decisions that need to be made. Like, for example, would I say in generally there's should there be a chain of command for, like, you know, house decisions or of like general disagreements? No. However, when it's time for tactical decisions to be made, it's important to have a chain of command so that there's a point 1 and point 2. This is kind of reminiscent of military of chains of command in general, and I think that as a result, in terms of making hard time-based decisions, it's important to have that. I'm not saying that it's not important to get the perspective of both people. However, when it is time to act on a necessary time crunch, then I think that it's important to have that default to leadership in that situation to be most optimal in the survival of just in general. Would you guys like to comment on that? Or?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, what situation is like so like under the pressure of time that you need like that level of organization and chain of command in like a regular day-to-day life.
Tactical decision making was wild.
Yeah, like
okay,
I'm trying to think of like what example you're drawing on to, because I'm thinking like, are we like escaping a burning house? Because that seems like it's a maybe once in a lifetime thing that would ever happen. I mean, not even, but many people don't ever experience that. So I'm like, what situation is like under such a time crunch that we need a tactical chain of command?
Yeah, well, I think similarly to what you were saying, in the event of a burning building, that's, I think, applicable, but in a smaller sense, there could be something like, let's say there's a great opportunity for a piece of real estate that you can get if you respond at the end of the day with the overall amount of funds that you've made with you and your spouse. The collection of money that you've collected, if you donate it to this house, you would get the house by the end of the day, but it's a requirement of getting it like in a time like crunch situation. So, for example, should we do? Yep.
So first of all, this feels like we are settling a personal conflict in your marriage. But second of all, are you actually about to tell me that you think if a man could close on a house using all of the savings that you and your spouse have saved up without asking her consent on about doing this, you think that's something he should be able to do?
Well, I think that I'm not saying that it's all money, but it's like, it's a financial commitment. I'm not saying that it'll get you into total poverty. If it brings you into total poverty, I reckon that you shouldn't do it regardless. But what I'm saying is, if it's a time sensitive thing and there is discussion between like two spouses, I reckon there needs to be somebody to take charge, and ideally the person who's elected of leadership, whether it be the man or the woman, to say, okay, I think this is the best move we need to act now and bear that burden of leadership to the degree that if it was a great thing, then good on you. Yep.
But don't you think a good leader also listens to what other people who are going to be affected by this decision? Like to me, you're describing a dictator, not really a leader. And also, I don't believe that in a marriage it's so impossible to like come to an agreement. Like and if it's a situation of like, let's say buying a house and you can't come to an agreement, that means you're not in agreement. That means the house does not get bought, no matter how good of a real estate decision it is. That means that you are not aligned and you don't get to buy that house because both people are not on the same page. So like it's almost like you're degrading the opinion of one person in the partnership because you believe that your decision making is superior, which there is no evidence to show that that's true. You just don't agree on something, which means you shouldn't move forward because you're in a partnership.
Yeah, I would say so. However, that necessarily prescribes the fact that the person's opinion is 100% like, you know, it cannot be like changed. Like, let's say, for example, let's say a couple of days go by and, you know, we decided not to go for this sale. And you talk about some more, and then I finally get them around to saying like, that you just explain it in that kind of way. I can see that this would have been the best choice, but now the opportunity is gone. So to that degree,
that's
I think
just life, though.
Yeah, that's just life. That just means that you and your partner, maybe now you know for the next time a similar opportunity comes up, then you know that that's something that you can go for. The other thing too is I would say work on your conflict resolution skills within the partnership. Like that is to me, if anything, a failure in communication. Like, how are you married to this person and you can't figure out a way to communicate how you feel in any timely manner? So,
well, it's not necessarily about communication.
Sorry, babe.
Of how you feel.
I had to spend all of our savings because it was urgent.
if my partner and I disagreed on something as big as buying a house, and it was going to be like, if I were in exactly that situation and like if I didn't make a decision later that day, we were going to lose the house, I would have a conversation with my partner and say, hey, this is a really high stress situation and I don't feel comfortable with doing this. So I think we get to let this go. This is actually maybe not for us, not meant to be. And later on, maybe we'll find something that we feel more aligned with. But I am not okay with my partner making a decision as big as purchasing a house just because he decides that his thought process is like superior to mine. Because I don't know. I can't guarantee that in a couple of days you're going to flip my mind. I can't guarantee that.
Okay, yeah. I think that I'm not really articulating the point in an effective manner. I'm not saying that, well, there should be no input, there should be no communication whatsoever in making significant decisions. That's not necessarily it. The thing is that if, let's say, they were both, or two people are both in the market for purchasing of a house, and there's a great house that comes around, but another partner is unsure for one reason or another and wants to buy a house and is in the market for it, but for whatever reason is unsure, like maybe the lawn size isn't that big, or maybe has the optimism that something else will come around. What I'm trying to articulate is that there's a certain degree of uncertainty that isn't necessarily warranted for the purchase of the house.
So this is the thing, Luke. What you're doing is you are taking your partner's worry for why they don't want the house and deciding that their worry is not worth you not buying the house. Like, you are taking their concern and disregarding it and saying that's not important enough, when in reality maybe it is. It also actually doesn't matter what they're like. If they want a bigger yard and that's a priority to them, they want a bigger yard and they get to have that as a priority in what they are looking for in a house because it's their house too. So it's interesting because it like this, the military analogy you used earlier, that is sort of how this feels, where you're kind of like a general, and that's not what a marriage is. That's not what a partnership is, for healthy ones. And your partner, their opinion and their choices also get to be respected. Like, why wouldn't her choice also be respected? If she wants a yard, then she wants a yard. If that's a priority, then that's a priority, and that should have been talked about ahead of time.
Okay. So I think something that we are necessarily disagreeing over is the nature of having a person elected to make command decisions for specific areas of family life. Okay.
Elected is crazy.
Well,
no one's electing a man into a family position to make decisions.
Right. Like, I agree with you, Luke, that there are some situations where sometimes somebody has to make a decision, like, you know, on behalf of like their couple. Okay. And so like things happen. Obviously, sometimes you can get these crazy situations and you have to go to your partner and say, hey, I'm so sorry I wasn't able to contact you before, but this thing happened. And then you take their feedback into account. That's all good and well. But you're calling in to make the case for like biblical submission, right? To me, that is not biblical submission. Isn't coming back to your partner and saying, hey, I was pressed and had to make this decision. I'm sorry I didn't consult you first. If you want to abandon it, we can opt out and take whatever penalties there may be. Like, biblical submission is saying kind of what you were really going for originally, which is I am deciding that this is the right decision for us and I'm just doing it because this is the house we're going to get. Like, I don't think biblical, like, to me, if you're going back to your partner and consulting and then like changing your plan, that's just partnership. That's not submission.
Okay, hold on. I think I need to rewind a bit. Did you say to me that I'm here arguing for biblical submission? According to the prompt.
That's why you called in, right?
That was
try to say that submission is good.
Yes. However, did you not say at the start of the conversation that the entire point of the prompt was you wrote it to just kind of get the conversation started? And as a result, biblical submission isn't necessarily what I advocate for. I don't really advocate for anything. I think advocacy and I have a very it is. I have a very mistrusting word to use advocacy, but what I'm saying is that
just to get.
I think that similarly, you would agree with me that there are certain select instances of which, if there is a time-sensitive thing and you have to make a decision without your partner, you elect to do that stuff. So it sounds like we agree on a fundamental level, at least from what I'm comprehending. Are you getting a different vibe?
We really don't, though, because so again, yes, it is to start the conversation, but if you're here to defend that biblical submission is good, and then we point out that what you're advocating for either isn't submission or isn't good, then to me, a reasonable, logical person would then go, okay, so I don't think biblical submission is good. Because either I don't advocate for submission, I'm advocating for something else, or I don't actually think it's good. Right? That would break one of those two things. And I'm not saying that, or sorry, go ahead, Alyssa. You're ready to jump in. Go for it.
I was going to say, I also think that Luke, you might be confusing what, I think Arden is talking more about when, like, if I give my partner a grocery list and I say, I want Barilla pasta and I want rotini, and they go to the store and there's only like the Stop and Shop brand and it's only penne, and they're like, this is all they had, so I made this decision without calling you because this is what they had and I felt like this was closest. That is a partner making a decision because, like, without calling the other partner and whatever, because that like makes sense. So that's not submitting. That's just like sharing partnership, sharing responsibilities within the partnership. Submitting, and what you're talking about, where like you're allowing one person in the partnership's opinion to be, I know that was like such an Italian example, but when you're allowing one person in the partnership's decision making to be like held at like a ridiculously high standard because you think that they are superior in some way, that's different. You're not taking your partner's wants, needs, and opinion into consideration at all, and that's different.
Okay. I think I didn't articulate this as clearly as I wanted to, which is, this isn't really my job. I appeal to ignorance to that degree, but I'm not saying that you should have someone that submits and they should be like, oh, well, this is the ultimate decider maker no matter what happens. I'm specifying in those niche situations of which there isn't time to communicate to someone and there is a promising opportunity. I think that if you should ideally have a system of trust with this your spouse, so that if they're making a decision that is for the betterment of you and your family unit, then they should be able to elect to do that thing.
See, I feel like you're playing word games, Luke. I don't think it's a matter of you articulating it correctly. You're saying like you want to advocate for biblical submission, but the biblical submission you're articulating is one where you're like, well, I might be in a situation where I have to do this thing without consulting them, but then I would go to them and say, what do you think about this thing? We can change it if you want. Like, to me, that, like, you're saying biblical submission, and then you're tying it to something that to me is not what that is. And if you just have some weird esoteric definition of submission that you're operating with, then okay, but then like that's not what the topic is about. Like you're talking about something entirely different.
What?
Like I think it's totally normal for couples to kind of divvy up like certain responsibilities and things like that, where you don't have to necessarily always consult each other all the time about every individual thing, but that you kind of come together and go over it. Like that's partnership to me. That's not submission.
Okay. In that case, I agree with partnership. I never
so you don't advocate for submission.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I mean, depends on what you mean by submission. I guess we submit to our boss. Sorry, go on.
Do you think? Are you married?
No.
Okay, so like hypothetically, you have a wife. Do you think that if there's a decision that you tip, like let's use the house example, if you guys make about the same amount of money and she decides, I actually think this would be a really big opportunity for us to miss, and she decides to purchase the house and tell you about it afterwards, would that be acceptable?
That would depend on the dynamic of the relationship that we have. If we decide, you know what, I think that when it comes to promising opportunities and finding good real estate, I think that you, my wife, is the best decision maker for that. So as a result, I think that it should be you who decides, where we should live, assuming I get a little bit of a say before that. Because again, with the house, I will admit that the house probably wasn't the best example because it is something that's a little bit bigger of a financial commitment. However, if it's something that is absolutely time essential and you have good reason to believe that I would also like this structure, then you should be able to act. But again, that depends on how we set up the relationship and the dynamic. But I think that inherent sense of you can have these qualifications, similar to what Arden was saying, and you have certain snap decisions that you can make given the parameters of the family unit and the relationship that we set up. I think that is good. Does that get us to where we need to be in terms of this conversation?
Okay. Well, yes, but I don't think. But to me, that's just like that's just partnership, because that is just two people in a relationship being like, here are the skills that I bring to the relationship, and what things you should like. You can depend on me for these things. This is what I bring to the relationship. Like that to me is not submission. That is just somebody being like, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I know people. I'm really good with money. So you should trust me with these decisions. And if your partner does, then great. Like that's totally fine. But again, that's just partnership. That's not even submission. Like submission is regardless of my expertise, regardless of the dynamic we have, regardless of the discussions we've had, at the end of the day, I should get the final say on how the household is run. And to me, it doesn't sound like that's what you're advocating for at all. So,
yeah, that isn't. That's why I really wanted to elaborate on what you meant by the word submission, because I can make the case that we submit to our bosses when we go to work. We have to submit to that person because they're signing our paychecks. If we make them upset, you certainly need to submit to them to a certain extent. I think that a similar thing might happen in relationships.
See, that's where it's like, that's where I don't agree with you, though, because your boss and you are in a power dynamic, an established power dynamic. Your boss is above you in a structure. And so in a partnership, in a relationship, you shouldn't have that. Like, you shouldn't have that level of power dynamic. It's not like your partner is not your boss.
I mean, I guess that would also depend on the dynamic of the partnership, because if, as we mentioned, two consenting adults want to get into a relationship where it's like, I want you to make every decision for me when I brush my teeth and all that stuff, is weird. But I mean, I guess you have, if you both agree to it, then I guess do it. Is that?
Sure. And that's like, people have free will to do whatever they want, but that's the difference between, can women submit to men or should they submit to men? Like,
yes.
We're asking, should they submit to men? Because people are welcome to do whatever the heck they want in their own houses. Like, as long as it's safe and consensual, I don't give a shit, and it doesn't affect everyone else. Then I don't really care. But should women submit to men is asking a question of, like, is that advantageous for the majority of women? So, and that's where I think we have a difference of opinion. And it's also interesting, Luke, because I think I think that we probably agree and are aligned more on like the things that are acceptable and not acceptable in relationship dynamics than we both initially thought in the beginning of this call. However, it is interesting that you called in response to the question of should women submit to men, with the, like, you calling in response to that prompt tells me that there's something in you that thinks, yeah, sometimes. And that's interesting, because what you actually described was partnership, but you responded to the submitting thing. So I don't know. I think it's just an interesting thing, maybe like internally to reflect on. Why do I think that where is the line of partnership and submission in the way that you view your relationships? Just might be interesting.
I think that's a fair, that's an interesting look into it, I would say. However, I also welcome you to agree that this is operating under the assumption that the prompt that was presented infallibly shows something that most people agree on. When I see the word submit, I don't think submission as a bad thing. I would love to submit to a woman. If I could have a woman make all my decisions for me, my financial, like, what is it? Have a family unit that carries the financial situations. I get to just, engage in, what is it?
Would
whatever
you like
I
to
would
submit
do
to
in
a
the
man,
meantime,
though?
but she, like, what?
Would you submit to a man, though?
Again, depending on what we mean by submit, in a family setting, no. But in terms of a work setting, the power dynamic needs to be there, because that's just how it works. So I'm okay with quote unquote submitting to a man, but in terms of family setting, no, that's just not my cup of tea.
Sure, it wasn't meant to be. It's a thing that men will say often, where like women will be like, oh, I got catcalled. It was so gross. It made me feel unsafe. And a lot of men will be like, I would love it if a woman catcalled me on the street. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure you would. But how would you feel if a man catcalled you? Because that's really the dynamic that's happening, right? So when you're like, oh, I would love to submit to a woman, I'm like, yeah, because most women are like sensitive to your wants and needs and are going to consult you. Whereas a lot of men are submission to men, a lot of men anyway, not all men, hashtag not all men, is like, do what I say in spite of your better interests or in spite of your better judgment. So it's just, when men do that little thing, I always have to point it out because it bothers me.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, Luke,
Well,
the
first off-
context
Oh.
of this show and the channel in general is a lot of conversations about like atheism versus theism. And so when we use words like submit, a lot of the times it's in the context of like biblical submission. And I actually think what you're describing is partnership for the most part. So I think it almost is a conversation of like snagging on the specific words.
Okay.
And it's also interesting, like I said, to just like think about in your own personal life where the difference, because did you say you are a veteran or like you have experience in that like dynamic?
Yeah, I have training, but never served, so
Okay.
I'm not a veteran.
Okay. Because I think it's interesting to think about like what submission means for you with like that background and what the difference of like submission and partnership is in a real like acting relationship, because that'll be something that might come up. It might not, but it might. And like, so it's interesting. Like, it's always funny when we have these conversations where like sometimes for some people it might feel like a waste of time because actually we probably are more aligned than we thought. But I think it still is helpful because it's like interesting to think about what that dynamic means for you, and like for anybody who's listening, like what's the difference between submission and partnership, and maybe that's something that like people get to explore now.
Yeah, I mean, I welcome that, and also if you want to have a conversation with probably more disagree with, I think that biblical submission, in the sense that you're referring to, was a valuable tool in the early stages of mankind development. Now in our, at least in America, in our, as provided we're in great wealth and, you know, have better knowledge and scientific advancements, I reckon it's not necessarily as important as it was back then, even to the degree that it's more something that you can elect to do, and if you think it'll be good, you can do it. That's primarily where I would stand on biblical submission, but yeah, I mean, overall,
I fully reject that. I don't think that women submitting to the whims of men has ever been good for them at any point in history, now or with the wisdom of science or before. I think women should have always been treated as equal individuals.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I think even like when you,
so
well, I think even Luke, when you
I
think
have a
about
question
like
for you.
periods of time, when you think about periods of time where women were submitting to men, and that was culturally kind of like the standard, it was also because the world was built for exactly that dynamic. So like for a period of time up until recent history, women couldn't vote, women couldn't own property, women couldn't have bank accounts. So they didn't really have a choice but to submit to the men around them, because the world was built so that men could do those things and women could not. So like, yeah, it benefited them to submit to men, but because of the system and the world that men created so that women didn't have freedom and choice.
Yep.
I mean, okay, so I guess when you think about biblical times, it's, well, we went back to, we mentioned briefly the analogy of the house on fire. It's important to have a clear voice telling you what to do in that situation. And back then, I imagine it defaulted to men who were typically, based on fat distribution, bigger and stronger from, at least I'm calling on the science we have now on human anatomy and development. As we said, fires were very rare nowadays. You don't really need a fire caller now. Maybe if it does happen, it happens once maybe in your life, and you can sue the heck out of a real estate company. Back then, though, you know, a daily worry was, well, the pagans are coming to kill all of us. Shoot. And that was kind of something that was more common back then. That's why I advocate, similar to how a general's chain of command, as we mentioned, would work in terms of making a clear voice to elude from danger. That's why I say back then that was important. Do I say that it's optimally the best in an ideal world? Probably not, no. But in that time,
I don't think anyone is confused here, Luke, about the dynamics of the situation or the historical context. I'm saying that just like how slavery is endorsed in the Bible, and there were people often like to go, well, it was indentured servitude and everyone was doing it back then, but it doesn't really matter because slavery was always immoral, even when it was convenient for people. And just like making women second class, making them subservient is immoral, it was always immoral, even when it was convenient for them in the systems they were in, which is Alyssa's point.
Yeah. It's also
Yeah,
like,
well,
if you use the burning,
Yeah.
if you use the like fire situation, what if I'm married to a man, God help me, and the man is not good in situations of emergency? Like what
yeah,
and
it
then
should be you
I'm
then.
the one who
That's
stays
well,
right. So then but then in that situation, if I'm in a historical context and I'm supposed to be submitting to men and this man is having a meltdown and I'm
Not good for you
okay, what am I
there.
supposed to do? Also have a meltdown? Like, no, it's just like it doesn't really matter. And like whoever feels like they can, it's a partnership. So whoever feels like they can create a plan to get everyone out of a burning house, I don't give a shit who it is. I just want to get out of the house in one piece. It doesn't matter that it's a man. So like I'm still
Yep.
struggling to see like even one example where submitting to a man, specifically submitting to a man, is beneficial. Even historically.
Well, okay. Well, historically, submitting him to a man would be beneficial because in the event of a historical, let's say you were in a period of history where if you were not to submit to a man, you would be burned for witchcraft. I think that would be,
at
least in terms of reducing harm, better in that moment.
Yeah, but the men were the one who were accusing people of witchcraft. That was a system that they created.
It's good for you because if you don't do it, I'm going to kill you.
I'm not saying
like, whoa, man, that's insane.
And you also,
like,
you're submitting because you didn't have a choice, and because if you made if you made like a natural homeopathic remedy for anything that went against what the Catholic Church was, trying to get people to pray away illness, and now they're going to set this poor woman on fire. But that's just you're submitting out of a system that was created to do exactly that. So like that's not an argument for why women should that's not.
Well, yeah, I'm not really arguing for.
I'm not saying that it makes that. It's okay. Yeah, the delay is especially bad today for some reason. I understand that there's historical context that created situations where women had to submit to men. That's not the same as should women submit to men because it's better for them. Like because it's better for them in a natural sense. Like it makes sense to do that. It made sense to do that because they didn't have a choice. In the same exact way as the example I gave before, which is in the 50s, women had to submit to men because they couldn't get a bank account, they couldn't buy a house, they couldn't own property at all, they couldn't vote. So yeah, they had to submit to men because that was the only way to survive in a system that was not built for them to be independent. So
real quick, Luke, before you go, I do want to give you a chance to respond. Sorry, real quick, and then you can go. I just want to say we've been on this call for like almost 40 minutes, and we do have one other call to get to, so we're going to want to put a button on this soon. So if you could deliver your last thoughts, you can always call back and continue the conversation. So don't feel like this is the end, but just put a button on it for tonight if you don't mind.
Yeah. So putting a button on it for tonight, I think tragically we do agree with a lot of positions, which is, whenever I sometimes call on to debate channels in order to debate, but I think tragically we just agree with a lot of positions. Primarily, going back to what I was saying about the positions, I'm not saying that it was a good position. I'm not even saying that morally, under the lens that I would see now, that it's at all a good position. But I'm saying that I was illuminating that is a position of which you would have had to submit due to powers outside of yourself, which are bullshit and unfair, but nonetheless, they did exist at that time. So to that same degree, there is a certain degree that can be made for the biblical sense of it. Not to say that it's at all morally good by our standards, but that it served the utilitarian purpose of nonsense to that degree. But yeah, nonetheless, when I called in, I didn't really think that I disagreed too much on the definitions, other than simple semantics of submission and the fact that everybody submits to a certain degree. But nonetheless, I thank you for having it. I can't really. I'm putting a bow on it. I want to ask Arden some questions just metatextually, but I won't have the time. But
another time,
thank
you
so
can
much.
call TACIS on Thursdays, or next time I'm on Chewed Gum, please feel free. Happy to take any questions about whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, just for tonight, we got to wrap it up. But thank you, Luke. We appreciate the conversation.
Awesome. No, thank you for letting me spurg. All right, goodbye.
Bye.
Hi, Luke. Oh my gosh. I
think there's maybe
think
like
it's funny that he's
confusion. Or sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. And it also was funny that he said tragically we agree. Tragically we agree.
Oh my
That
gosh.
was funny.
These leftists and transgenders, I can't believe I agreed with them. Horrible.
No, horrible. Must be hard. Must be hard for Luke. Okay, so let's bring in our last call. We have Robert, who is calling from Virginia, I think. That's cool. Hi, Robert.
Huh? Oh, hi. Sorry, I was...
How are you? Thanks for hanging in for as long as you have. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it. I'm a big fan of the show. Honestly, I'm kind of excited because you two are kind of like the hosts that I enjoy watching the most. Kind of like have like a good kind of like good cop, bad sort of thing going. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh,
yeah.
Yay. I'm so glad.
Don't worry.
What did you want to talk about
I'll
today?
bring all the spice. Yeah, give it to us.
Yeah. Before I get started on the topic, I just kind of want to say that it's like pretty cool because I kind of wish I was able to like uphold some of my points as vehemently as Arden can. Sometimes when people give me a little bit of pushback, I find myself really passive. And so it's like, this is kind of like a way for me to like articulate some points that I feel some way about. But yeah, I guess like my position is kind of, I want to be sort of on the point of whether or not I think incels are real and how it comes to be. And I think that they have they're real in the sense that like people identify as them and they're real. And I feel like they exist because of the fact that there's a couple factors that help produce incels as socially. And I think like what comes into being is, the social aspect, the economic aspect, and the more superficial aspects of like how I look and how some immutable traits they feel control their inability to be into a relationship.
Yeah, well, I think, it's interesting because there are people who I do think are do legitimately struggle with finding partnership and companionship and are legitimately involuntarily celibate to some degree. Like, I don't think that, but do you mean, I'm trying to clarify what your position is. Do you mean that that there are people who have an experience of having a really hard time finding relationships, having sexual experiences, whatever, that are not like the incels and identify as incels and are like in a Reddit talking about how all women are shitty? Like, is that the...
No, I think that there is like some people who legitimately cannot get into relationships through factors that are out of their control and not in like the usual kind of incel form that
like
just
what?
sort of reside. I think one of the biggest aspects is economics play into a big aspect into it. As of late, women are getting a lot more educated. They have the ability to go into the workforce, and we're kind of seeing like a huge gap between how much women are getting educated and being able to have their own financial independence and autonomy and being able to go out into the workspace and not be so reliant on a man anymore for their own well-being. And I think that's good, personally. I don't think that like women should be reliant on a man because it actively harbors negative experiences for them and puts them into situations where they can be abused and taken advantage of. So I think it's good that women are able to go into the workspace and get their own education. And personally, I just think that, like, no but.
Okay.
So how does that
That's
contribute to the incel community?
I think that, like, due to the fact that, like, I think that, like, there's a lot of, like, patriarchal aspects that play into, like, creating incels that kind of is like a ball that, like, helps create these, like, systems that, like, because women are allowed to be able to get into positions of power, and we're starting to see that dynamic shift more and more, men are kind of, like, left at, like, the weird center where, like, now they just don't have such a lopsided advantage because everything was kind of handed and given to.
I'm sorry, I'm struggling to see how this relates to being an incel, because, like, sure, I agree that to a certain extent economic factors are out of your control, but, like, women are still vastly underrepresented in the workplace. Just, like, by the way, like, I saw a study today that was like 36% of first-time promotions are represented by women, meaning men are getting, like, almost 70% of the, like, first round promotions for employees. So, like, women are very underrepresented in high ends in the workplace. So I don't understand what this argument is. Like, I'm not following.
Is it, Robert? I'm curious, Robert, if it's that because women are able to get jobs, buy a house on their own, hypothetically adopt children or use a sperm bank if they want to, they don't need men anymore. Like, the reliance is not there, and so they're not looking as much because it's not a necessity.
That's more that's more along the lines of what I was trying to say, and not very well articulated. Okay. But and in general, like, I was reading an interesting study that even came into the being about, like, men are that women are much better social are much more helpful in social situations. They're a lot more empathetic, have a higher need for the group, and they have, in general, a lot more care for each other, which inadvertently means that, like, if you're somebody who is looking for a relationship, you might find it really difficult to connect with a man because more likely he is a little bit more disillusioned to what problems plague you and, like, what you might be feeling at a given time. And because women are able to get into positions of power, not easier, but, like, they're getting to be able to close the gap more and more as time goes on, the need for men is kind of slowly detaching. And I guess that's along the lines of what I'm trying to say.
So, Robert, this reminds me of conversations where we've had people call and they'll say that women are too picky and men are swiping right on 90% of people. Women are only swiping right on 10% of people. How are you supposed to be able to compete with that? And, like, how are you supposed to be able to find someone? And our response is aspire to be the 10%, aspire to, be better, work on your communication skills, make yourself, like, it's interesting because for so many years, there was a conversation that, that was going around, like, the Andrew Tate side of the internet, that was like, well, what value do women bring to the table, And so that conversation has been placed on women for so long that now we bring as much value as a man does to the table in many circumstances, and now men have to find their value. And so it's a tough thing because my instinct is to say, it's not about what you're doing, it's about who you're being. If you are a person who is like I actually, when I think about like my future partner, my only expectation is that they are able to be responsible for like the parameters of their own life, and that they are like a whole to the best of their, like, you know, not everybody's perfect, and we're always gonna have shit to work through. You're a whole person on your own. You're like your own thing. And I have more fun hanging out with you than I do by myself. And so
Right.
like that means that I'm anticipating this person to have a life of their own, hobbies, a job, friends, community. And I don't want to have to be the person who provides that for a man because I'm their partner and not their mom. So, like,
Right.
I think I understand what you're saying and I want to empathize. And what's the expectation for the women? Like, what do women do in response to that?
Yeah, I mean, like, so, yeah, and I guess, okay, now the ease has been off because I'm starting to get like a little bit more comfortable. So like, and you know, that's kind of like where I was trying to come at, is that like, I don't think that there should be an inherent expectation out of women to do these things, because I agree, I don't think they should be your mom, and shouldn't have like these expectations of subservience and or any of these other usual things that are spouted from the manosphere. But I do think that there is like particular traits that, like, even if you're like, I guess to sound like a nice guy, like, even if like you're like a normal person who's well-adjusted, responsible, takes care of its own things, there's no real need, because I find that like most people can still find comfort, I guess, out of their own social groups and friends and communities that are generally more friendly and caring to your needs, and especially with women who can just confide in their own groups, and that's fine, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that should be a little bit more encouraged. But so, and I guess like that's kind of like where I was kind of going into play about like how I think incels sort of exist, but not maybe like not in the super misogynist context that like is usually associated with it.
I guess I just don't see how it's anything other than the misogynist context, though, because like, kind of like Alyssa was saying, like, okay, so you are like lacking these social skills, like that's rough and that's gonna hurt you. But like, what I don't understand what's supposed to happen. Like, I don't understand. I think this is kind of what Alyssa was saying, and I know you said you don't want to prescribe anything to women, but like, I don't know, like. It's also, men don't have to be that way. I have like my best friend in the entire world, my favorite human being. He has several guy friends who he is very emotional. Like I love him because he's a little fruity, right? He loves to hug and be like affectionate and like very nice to all his friends, including the men in his life. Complimentary, like builds them up. You know, he's very like positive masculinity kind of vibes. And I mean, like Jesse Jurdak, who's on this channel all the time, is like toxic positive masculinity. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's so positive, it's almost sickening. Yeah. So I just, yeah, I don't understand. Like, what conclusion are you trying to get to? Do you want us to just like acknowledge that, like, sure, some people have a hard time getting laid, or like, are you trying to say like we should reframe how we're thinking or talking about this? Like, I'm trying to understand the purpose.
I guess the purpose of what I'm trying to say is that, like, I guess like incel doesn't. I guess is like, how do we like reframe the context of being an incel from having the association of being misogynistic and having like deep undertones of like being associated with the manosphere, and just being able to understand that, like, hey, there are men who are having difficulty acclimating to the new social environment, as like there's less of a need to. There's less of a need for like men being in positions of power, and that women have their own bodily autonomy, which is an overall net positive. How to frame like not like how to frame like and encourage more men to be in this like realm of like empathizing with this, and it's so, and not necessarily feel deterred.
Why is
by
the solution? Okay, I follow you now. But now I have a different question. Why is the solution to reframe incels? Why is this? Because, like, to me, the entire community of incels, the language that they use is unequivocally, inarguably misogynistic. I definitely think like the male loneliness epidemic is like a problem, and I'm all for us like, you know, investing research into understanding what is going to help men become a little bit more emotionally available so that we can help them deal with the loneliness or whatever. Like, that's all great. But to me, that's not about reframing incels. That's about like helping male loneliness. Like, to me, the second you're like, oh, I can't have sex with a woman because there are these just immutable things that I have no control over. I don't know that needs reframing, or if that's helpful to anyone to put effort into reframing that. But maybe I'm totally off. Alyssa, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I also think there's the male loneliness thing and the incel thing feel like they're hand in hand, because I think that and we've had this conversation before on this show, there's like a larger scale issue of the way that like masculinity handles close relationships, like the way that vulnerability plays a part in what that means, and how that is really challenging for men because of the like the vision of masculinity that's been created by this like patriarchal standard. So the thing that's tough to me about that is it doesn't feel like women can step in and have that conversation. It feels like men have to have that conversation with other men. Partially because it just feels like why do women have to keep doing all of this work? Like, women already had to do all of this work to be able to have the level of independence that we do, that it's like it is frustrating to then have to, you know, turn around and teach these people skills that like they should have. I don't know. I don't want to say that they should have learned, because that's not fair, and that's also just like not true and not honest. But
just like
that's not fair. But it's more that like I think men also need to find ways to support each other. Like that level of community gets to exist within men. And like I think about the things that women do to better themselves, and is sort of like part of, like, for a long time going to therapy was something that like many men would never do, and even now would never do, because it felt too feminine. And like they didn't want to do. Then you have to admit that you have to work on something. That's crazy. And so it's like stuff like that where women have led the charge in a lot of those types of things, like those like self-help type of things. And women have also really leaned on their communities. Like, one thing about women, we love to yap with friends, and that dynamic creates community. It creates support. It shows us how to be vulnerable. Like, some of the deepest, most vulnerable friendships or relationships that I have are with my best friends. And we get a lot of practice in that. The gap that I have a hard time bridging is similar to what Arden was saying, where how do we as women, why is it our personal responsibility to bridge that gap when there are men who do successfully do it? And I think that maybe they can better communicate, coming from the same or similar lived experience of what it's like to be a man in a world where so much of masculinity impedes on vulnerability, impedes on connection, and like depth of connection, and then help out their fellow man and help them build out what that means without then like turning around and turning into like a weird Andrew Tate vibe.
Yeah, I mean, no, I totally agree. And like the weird thing for me is like, I guess that's sort of like the conception I have is like recontextualizing it to not necessarily be something that you have to associate with being, you know, misogynistic and harmful to other women, because it seems like the only way that like a lot of these men can even like coexist in like a community with one another is either in the context of religion, which ultimately reinforces a lot of like harmful stereotypes for men and puts them into like precarious positions where they have to ultimately be harmful to each other and themselves, which doesn't really help them and kind of like continue spinning the cycle. And I suppose that that's like sort of what I was getting at, where, you know, could there be like any sort of need to like help understand that like this doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing and harm your this doesn't have to be like something that you have to be ashamed by. The fact that you can't have sex or can't get a girlfriend doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing.
I can definitely get on board with needing to be better about messaging broadly in the media that like not getting laid or choosing not to have sex until you're older or until whenever is totally acceptable. Like I definitely advocate for like breaking down sexual shame stuff. I just, yeah, I don't know, Robert. I appreciate the conversation. I don't understand why this is about like detaching incels from misogyny. Like, to me, that's not what you're advocating for. You're advocating for like helping men with loneliness problem. But I'm sorry, incel culture online is unequivocally misogynistic. And on my list of priorities right now, I'm going to tell you, incels are at the bottom. Like they don't even back onto the leaderboard. So like,
there's a lot more problems right now.
Like,
but you know what's interesting is Matt asked in the chat, are there women who are incels? And it's funny because a woman who's like hypothetically an incel would probably be more likely viewed as like a higher value woman because she hasn't had sex yet. She's like so pure. And for men, it's that they're incels. So like there is a messaging issue for sure. But I also think that the incel community is not really helping themselves there. Like there are some really, really harmful things that come out of that community. Not everyone, obviously. And I also think, Robert, like you are welcome to say that like people who have not had sex yet should not call themselves incels unless they are part of that like online community that is spewing that misogyny. Because like if you don't identify with what that community does and says, then babe, that's not you. You're just a person who hasn't had sex yet or doesn't want to. So I think, like, you know, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, because like one of the issues I definitely had was like interconnecting when like I was like, oh, there's like a community of other fellow dudes who just like don't get. I realized it was like we have very different ideas of what we meant, and like usually when I would try to talk on the forums, I would just get like ridiculed off and called like a beta cuck, and I was like, well, that wasn't particularly helpful, and so that was something that was kind of interesting, and what's weird to me is because they're usually also all religious is like the thing that like it's always like with it, and like I don't necessarily know like the connection there, but that's kind of all I had to really ask for. And I guess I agree, Arden, there's not necessarily too much of a use in trying to change the language, and it's really not the highest priority in the world, but just something that like I was giving some thought to.
Yeah, I think you also just get to separate yourself from the incel community, because I don't think that applies to you. Like, I actually don't. I think that if you're struggling with loneliness in general, finding community through anything that feels fun and exciting and interesting to you is something you should do. And like, if talking to women or men or whoever you want to have sex with is not easy for you, it's oftentimes easier to do through friends. So broadening your community is going to only be helpful for you. It'll help you build confidence in your social skills and help you like branch out into different friend groups. Like it really only benefits you. So I would say, I think we don't need to like rebrand incels. I think that's just not the same community as the one you're describing.
Yeah, because like because I had like this really, I've had these really weird instances where like I describe a lot of the things that I do, and people seem really just, I guess, to go on a random tangent about myself, is I was describing all the things that I was talking about, and the person that I was talking to seemed really interested. It's like, wow, it's, seemed pretty empathetic and emotionally intelligent about all these sort of things. And then I'm like, yeah, like it's why I kind of like try to talk about incel stuff like that. And immediately it seemed like, I guess, identifying with that community, even though I'm not like necessarily like adhering to any of like the principles, only using the name by pure definition, I guess is not necessarily super smart, I guess, in hindsight, now that I think about it.
I think it's just not you. But I appreciate you bringing up this conversation, and I hope you call back and give us updates on your dating life and friend life.
I guess just with therapy, I guess. Okay. Well, I guess you guys have a lovely time. And I love the show. Good night.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Okay. That was such an interesting day of calls.
Yeah, there were some interesting ones in there. I feel like sometimes, maybe, I don't know, I don't watch every episode of this, so maybe you guys handle calls a little differently than I do, but I feel like there were a few times where people wanted to call in and be like, well, I wanted to talk about this. And I assumed that meant they were calling in to like advocate for or defend that position, when I guess they were just talking about it. And I was like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess if you're not advocating for it, I don't know what to tell you.
It's interesting because we sometimes get I was gonna say episodes. I guess they are kind of episodes, but sometimes we get shows that where like people are calling and it's like remember how I posted that reel earlier today and I had the thunderstruck sound, and it's like that's us the whole time. Where like the whole time it's just like psycho mode.
Right. Yeah. It took me a minute to remember. Yes. Right. You were digging in on that. It was so good.
And then there are other times where we have people who call and like at the end of I love the times where we have like the whole episode is debates and like we're just like arguing with people, and like that's really fun and like makes for really great like clickbaity clips and stuff like that. But every now and then we just have a very chill show and people are just like wanting to yap, and I think that those are also like productive in a completely different way. So
absolutely,
you got one of those today.
No, yeah, totally. I think there are people who like sincerely think women should submit, so talking about it is good, even if that caller isn't necessarily saying it themselves. Also, y'all can go check out that reel Alyssa posted earlier. It was so good. I like the bloodlust in your eyes when you were about to dig in. Like you could see it on your face. You were like, I'm going to rip this person apart. It was great.
I was on my last fucking nerve with that man. So yeah. Anyway, let's get to our super chats.
All right.
$5 Australian from Darian McAuliffe. Girl, I don't know how to say that. I'm so sorry, Darren. Erica, when I compared you to Jabba, that was supposed to be a compliment, no context today. Okay, I don't know what that. Yeah, without the context and without Erica, I have no idea what that means. But thank you so much for the support.
100 sex from Peter Flumberg. The line is the best channel in the observable universe. True facts.
10 Canadian dollars from Quantum Chaos. Arden, I have a crippling fear of nope ropes, danger noodles, and snack. How do I stop my brain from being scared without having to go near one? Please save me from myself. I live in the woods. So many. Are these are snakes? Danger noodles is really funny.
Yes. I mean, just watch like people will post like egg cutting videos. I always think those are really good because you get to see a little baby snake hash out, and I think they're all cute and weirdly proportioned. Videos are a really good way, but honestly, without going near one is your problem. Like, you need to go to like an expo or to a pet store and hold one with an expert there so you know you're safe. once you've done that, I guarantee like 90% of the fear will dissipate once you've held one time and you realize they aren't the scary things you think they are.
They're also like, some of them can be really cute. Like when I was at your house and there was the one that looks like it has cookies, like chocolate chip cookies on it. I think about that snake just like randomly going throughout my day. I'm like, that snake that looked like it had chocolate chip cookies on it. That was so stinking cute. And their faces are really cute.
Yeah, I just moved a new one into this enclosure right there. She's gonna live there, grow up there, so I can show her off to people. Be like, look at how cute they are. She's asleep right now, so I'm gonna leave her alone.
Oh.
Is this one me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. See, ADHD can't keep track of who started the conversation 2 minutes ago. £5 from Herbie Shine, a smaller super chat today, as a big bill arrived earlier. Having to pay for things is rubbish. Herbie, you can also not give us money sometimes and pay your bills. That's allowed. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate it, but
yeah,
make good decisions.
Sure, pay your bills first. Pay your bills first. Don't worry. $5 from. Oh my God!
I'm here to make you submit to my will.
He brought
show you the
Is this the cookie? Is this the cookie?
This is cookies.
There it is! Oh
it
my God!
looks like he's got chocolate chip cookies all up and down. He also has the prettiest. Oh, he's twisting. There we go. He's also got the prettiest face. Look at his little face. Hello.
Oh my God!
Got a little stuck shed, so I need to add some mist in there. But I demand that you both submit to the cuteness. The only thing you need to submit to.
Oh, that was like a magic trick that he just came out with, exactly the snake that I was talking about. That was so exciting.
Right.
See, isn't that whoever sent that super chat? Isn't that snake really cute? There's little cookies on it. How could you be scared? I could never.
Adorable.
$5 from Aaliyah Shauna Silverbow. Alyssa, your nails look amazing today. Thank you so much. They are press-ons.
Right. They're really cute.
They're from. Thank you. They're from a brand called
Also, I'm
Glam
sorry.
Medic.
You can let them know. I apologize, but you mentioned it. We're going to have an egg cutting video very soon. There's eggs that we're going to be cutting in the next couple of days, so mind our Instagram.
Oh, okay. Nice plug. Nice plug. I thought he was telling me there were eggs that were hatching right now. Not quite.
Oh my God.
£5 from Jessica. I'm autistic, struggle with it. I don't have access to professional help. It affects my entire life. Can't see it as a positive. My life is, or it's ruined my life. Well, I feel like there's a line between the it's ruined my life thought, because I've said that about gender dysphoria too. Like the way it's made my life difficult. I'm like, that's ruined my life. But I really don't necessarily think that's always true. But it absolutely can be a disability. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that. You don't have to call it a superpower if you don't want.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope that you're able to find some free supportive resources, even if it's like an online community of other people who struggle with similar like symptoms. I don't know if symptoms is the right word, but similar like I don't know what other word to use. Not symptoms. There's another word, but similar like things that you're struggling with in the type of autism that you have. If you can find other people who have found ways to be supportive, or like a community of some sort, even that can be really helpful. Just like the validation of knowing you're not alone, and maybe they figured out like systems or methods to make their lives easier that you can also emulate. You never know. But thank you for the support, Jessica. $50 from Joanne Bell. Gotta support women when I can. In your opinion, how worried should AFABs and women be in this climate? I'm already trans, and that's that's bad enough, but I gotta go and be AFAB too. Arden, I feel like this is a you question.
I mean, well, also a you question because AFAB, but
yeah.
I mean, yes, be worried. Everyone should be worried. People assigned female at birth should definitely be worried. I mean, you're going to have bodily autonomy issues across the country, no matter the state. Some states might keep abortion legal, but whether or not they'll be able to perform it, if Trump is threatening to like defund a hospital or something, that's a whole other matter. So, yeah, I mean, That's why a lot of people have been doing the don't fuck men until we have abortion rights thing. And it's like, I mean, or don't fuck anyone who can get you pregnant, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think also it's a really good time to just really, really, really brush up on your sex ed. Like, please, please, please use a condom. Like, please use a condom. Keep track of your menstrual cycle so you know if you're ovulating, and like if you're ovulating and you're not on a birth control that like is something that is like 99% effective, like an IUD or hormonal or whatever. Don't have sex when you're ovulating. Just don't have sex when you're ovulating. Don't take the risk. It's a couple of days. It's like 5 days. Just don't have sex in those days if you really are like feeling the stress of like, I cannot have a child. You can also go on Amazon, which I know we're not trying to, but for the sake of it being cost effective, there you can buy generic Plan B or emergency contraceptive from Amazon, and it's like $8. So I know we're like not trying to support Jeff Bezos, but $8, can't beat it. And it's in my Hoobie, like my link tree in the bio of my Instagram. So if you want a direct link to it, it's there. There's also websites where you can buy Plan C, which is a schmabortion pill, and you can buy them and just have them. Like I have like 4 packs of Plan B. I should also have Plan C. I don't have it yet, but I'm going to get that too, because just in case, if I need it, my friends need it, I have it. But aside from that, I mean, I think do the best you can, balance your mental health with it, but do the best you can to stay like informed of the things that you need to be prepared for, like getting Plan B or Plan C if you need it. But yeah.
Absolutely.
$5 from the Raven 200. Be sure to consensually tug at the like button's choker while you're hitting it from behind. Hashtag kinky like button gang. If Gohan calls in, point and laugh. Who's Gohan?
He's this caller who has been calling a lot lately, who is like anti-trans and anti-abortion and is just annoying as fuck. And he bothers everyone, and then we'll be like, I just don't understand the trans stuff. And we're like, well, that's clearly not it, because it's been explained to you like 500 times live on air in front of everyone. So you just don't like it? Like, what's the actual problem? But he's an annoying jackass.
So, like,
thank you, Raven.
He's like, I don't care if you understand it or don't understand it. Like, just leave them alone. Mind your fucking business.
Literally. I've never asked anyone to be a trans activist. Just leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah, at a minimum, just leave other people alone.
So easy.
I think this is you, actually.
$5 from Jamnico6. I prefer watching people spar with their minds more than with their bodies. Hashtag mental kickboxing. Hashtag love the line. Hashtag team Arden. Hashtag TACIS games on chewed gum ? Thank you. Yeah. Sometimes I like watching somebody get punched in the face. Every now and then it's satisfying. You get a really good one, and I'm like, that guy needed it. It felt good to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. $5 from Tinkerbell 1980. Disability is not a dirty word. Fat is not a dirty word. Also safe, sane, and consensual. 2 different callers. Yes. Agreed.
Hell yeah.
Agreed.
$10 from Zurith Moonpaw. BDSM is therapeutic for me. I have chronic pain. At least when I'm being masochist, I get to choose the pain I'm in. Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people, where it's like an opportunity to kind of like, you're reliving trauma anyway, but in this way you're kind of like reliving it, but you're in control, so you can make it kind of positive and deprogram your body's response to like those kind of stimuli.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
You can rewrite it, which is cool.
Totally.
$5 from Zurith Moonpaw. I tried doming once. I used every psychological abuse tactic I know, which was very effective, but I hated the headspace I went in. Yeah, it's like, it's these things within sexuality are an opportunity to like play in some ways, and to also like experiment and expand what your capacity for feeling. And like all of sex is stuff that's happening in your brain, and it's a response of like what your neurological connection between tissues and brain is. And so for some people experiencing something like BDSM, like Zura said in the previous message, you're rewiring the neurological connection between what might have been painful to you before is actually kind of pleasurable in whatever way. So I don't know. There's so much there that at the end of the day, if you don't understand it and it's not for you, great. It doesn't have to be. Just like, again, leave people the fuck alone and let them do what they want.
Yeah. $5 from Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. I don't care for adult fun time in general, but whatever 2 or more consenting adults do in their bedroom is not my business. Hashtag sex positive aces unite. Hell yeah. Yeah, I just can't find it in me to care about what consenting adults do.
No. €5 from Marty Capdevila Giavoto. That's a very Italian name. I should have said that way better than that. I'm sorry. Day 2 of asking the host to please draw the line because I don't know if it's squiggly or how long it is. And I think it's been too long for people. That's really funny. To draw the line.
The line is in our logo. The line is the one that makes the little phone.
Yeah.
$5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Sarah, the road to fascism is beset by people telling you to calm down. Fascists always assure you that everything is normal. You aren't nuts. Yeah, totally. Gotta love the liberal. You're overreacting. And it's like,
oh, I can't.
They literally just subverted all of Congress. I don't know what to tell you.
I know. I don't know, like, at what point we'll stop getting that. Like, we have literal, like, Nazis in office openly, and you're telling me that I'm still exaggerating? I'm so confused. At what do they have to do for us to not be exaggerating anymore?
I know. They've got Nazi tattoos and they're sig heiling and they're like, you call everyone a Nazi. It's like, no, I called Nazis Nazis. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. Only the one who like literally hold their hand up in exactly the same way. Like, I just, shocking.
So crazy.
$5 from President Starscream. I'm only okay with kink shaming someone with a shame kink and only if they consent. Hashtag Team Snick Mom. Oh, wait, wrong day. That's funny.
Yes. If you guys don't watch TACIS, we do like these hashtag Team Arden or hashtag Team Josie or hashtag Team Blacks like battles. So
I love it.
We keep score too. $10 from Unstillborn. Take my money for reassuring me that I'm sane. Love the show and the community. Yeah, anytime. That's what we're here for.
$5 from Alishana Silverbow. When having a conversation with a Trump voter, he kept asking me where I got my info from. I kept responding, not Fox News. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're like, me either. I got it from OAN. $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. I think conservatives have a hard time imagining that other people might be less sociopathic than them. Caring is for pussies, the new national motto.
Yeah.
Man, that's
it's
so true.
Always that. Always that. $19.99 from Cody Cooper. I hope Powder Emperor / Empress calls in. Just kidding. Great show. I love that. I love what everyone at the line does. Powder Emperor. Do you know what that is?
There's this caller, I think it's Imperious, who sometimes calls himself Powder Emperor, and he calls in and he's just like, oh, he called Promise the C word on the Sunday show this weekend. After starting the call, no less, being like, let's not ad hom here today, okay? I'll have a conversation with you, but you guys got to be respectful and reasonable. And then he went on to call her that. Like, you can't make it up. It's amazing. I love it.
Wow.
Luckily,
that's
it's
crazy.
funny because Promise was laughing and she felt cool about it. I would totally be down to like berate the guy if she had a problem. But
psycho mode. That's when Thunderstruck would start playing in my head. Good luck.
Right.
It's crazy.
$10 from Bobby Keniston. My new business idea: adult videos of people who with people about to engage in wild kink fantasies, but then someone pops up and talks them out of it, and they go out for vanilla ice cream instead. Any thoughts? Amazing.
That's silly and
beautiful.
Very funny. That's
I love
cute.
it.
$4.99 from Sarah Talks Podcast. I'm overwhelmed by all the love and support. Thank you, hosts and everyone. Oh, we love you, Sarah. Thank you for calling.
Yeah.
I told you everyone loves you.
I don't know about that. Sometimes the comment section. Oh, you're talking about Sarah. I thought you were saying everyone loves me. That's so awkward.
Oh. Who doesn't
I was
love
like,
Arden?
I don't think everyone does love me, but then you're like, I wasn't saying that
Arden?
anyway.
Whoever doesn't love Arden, you come to the front. You come to the front. I'll end you.
There's a lot of commenters. I'll tell you what. Oh my God. It's so wild. I scrolled through the comments on the Cus I Wanna I did last Friday, and most of them, like 90% of them are positive, but the bad ones are so unhinged. It's really funny.
I can't. If I ever found out that someone that I was friends with was a person who commented on the internet, like negatively, I would be so mortified. Like I would be just absolutely sunken into the ground, mortified. I would never speak to them again. Sorry.
Right? I genuinely don't understand. Like there's sometimes you get something factually wrong, or like you were saying something cruel and then like, pushback seems warranted to me. But yeah, the people who are just like, I think you need to be critiqued on how you look. That kind of stuff. I'm like, who's asking? Why did you feel the need to say this?
Not one person asked.
$5 Canadian from Cartoon Hero 1986. I need to mentally prepare too. A friend just messaged me they're getting married on the 31st. My brain internally screamed, that's too soon. Yeah, well.
Yeah, I get that.
Maybe have a conversation with them, but then be like, however it goes, I love you and I'm going to be there for you. That's kind of probably what I would do.
Yeah, for sure. $10 from Bobby Keniston. Okay, new business. Oh, wait. That's another one. Okay, new business idea. Adult videos about a couple who can't agree on buying a house. Then the realtor pops up eating onions and encourages them to explore their wildest kink fantasies. House sold.
Oh my God. That's really good.
I love the idea of like if someone happened to accidentally skip to exactly that part of the show and didn't watch any other part of it, they'd be like, what the fuck did they talk about on the show today?
Okay, I swear to God, though, that caller, I genuinely think he bought a house with their shared savings without telling his wife. Yeah. I think I know he said he doesn't have a wife, but that just felt so specific. Like, what if you just find the perfect house that you've been talking about and I spent all of our life savings on the down payment and didn't tell you? Like, what if that happened? Like,
I was suspicious that he was actually like what we thought he was. But then once we started talking about it, he was like, oh, this like looks really bad, and just started like kind of backpedaling. But I don't know if that's true. I'm just suspicious that was the situation. But I don't know. Maybe he was being honest. I doubt it.
Maybe. $5 from ZM. I'm learning from both of you. Thanks. Good. I'm glad.
Yay. Happy to hear it. $10 from JS. My answer is yes. Sometimes when a woman wants to be taken care of without responsibility, like at a job, if you're not responsible, then you don't get authority. However, this would apply to men too. Sorry, I yawned at like literally the worst time. I just got so tired.
$10 from King Cyrus the Great. Let's not forget certain societies didn't have such sexist dynamics, especially tribal cultures. Europeans were shocked that women hunted and were part of armies in Africa. Yeah, I mean, like the European framework of like women as like submissive waifs is like definitely a new invention, because I know there are some like archaeological dig sites where there are like women buried with the hunters who had like hunting tools and stuff like that. Like women have been a part of that for as long as humanity has been around. So
yeah. So like using the historical examples is always kind of like a waste of time to me, but what do I know? $5 from Monkey, a typewriter. Remember, ladies, that Luke boy is available. Betcha all ready to knock his effing door down, huh? Also, what the fuck is a tactical decision in a marriage? I know the tactical decision was really funny.
I almost lost it at that. I'm like, there's no way you said the word tactical decision in reference to a marriage.
Tactical decision. What are you talking about? Like, what even is that? That was really bizarre. It did make me laugh.
That felt
though.
like Christian nationalists anticipating Civil War vibes is what I got when he said that. I'm like, tactical decision? Yeah. Like, you're like,
tactical decision.
Pack up, we're moving because we're in danger, or
right.
$5 from Joshua Everett. Whether a woman should submit to a man depends entirely on the quality of the submission hold and the stamina reserves of both. Hashtag team put a button on it. You had me totally fooled throughout 90% of that. That was really good.
I love put a button on it. That was so stinking cute. I was like, put a button on it.
I say that and people have been pointing it out now. They're like, yeah, you say put a button on it all the time. Okay.
I love put a button on it. I'm going to steal that. That's really cute. $5 from Heathen Granny. One time when I was a kid, I wanted to play on my PS2 with my female cousins. Then my dad told me video games are for boys, not girls. That's mean. And I know lots of people who make a full living off of playing video games on the internet who would really, really disagree with your dad.
For real. That's so random. Actually, interestingly enough, sorry, sidetrack. I know we have super chats. I felt like I got into video games as a kid because it was one of the few areas that wasn't like gross in its masculinization, but that I wouldn't get like critiqued for enjoying. You know what I mean? Like, people aren't going to be like, oh, wow, you like that, you little gay boy or whatever.
Right.
Whatever kids are going to say is insults. But that still, there was like a lot of women who did that or girls who did that. And like, not every game was like, I was never into like sports games.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I also love how you're so far from like those kinds of insults that you literally could not think of one. If you're like, you gay little boy.
Yeah, I'm like, I mean, I definitely got all of those things when I was a kid, but you know, whatever.
We shoved them away. We can't even remember them anymore.
Smoked way too much weed for that.
Period.
$5 Canadian from Cartoon Hero 1986. Trying to separate incels from misogyny is like trying to separate Jim Jones from the People's Temple cult movement. Not gonna happen. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Agreed. $5 from DaCosta. I used to call myself an incel because of my understanding from the lady from the 1990s. Now I'm just celibate. Okay. I don't know I wonder what lady you're talking about, but that's interesting. Celibate. Celibate is way better.
Yeah, I don't know what woman either. $5 from Squidward Q Sagan. Thank you.
Thank you. $5 Canadian from Cartoon Hero 1986. Robert saying incel. Arden and Alyssa, you keep using that word. I do not think you know. I don't think it means what you think it means. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know if he didn't. I think he knew what it meant, but like wasn't exploring the option that like just because you are not having sex doesn't mean you're an incel. I'm like, babe,
it's
you're
a
not
reference
an incel.
to the Princess Bride.
Oh,
yeah.
Is it?
I knew the reference, but it's I can't remember the character.
Say that in
but
the Princess Bride.
I'm trying to remember the part. I can't even remember the character's name, but they've got like a funny accent. I feel like I would be canceled if I tried to mimic it. But they're like
the fencer.
It might be. It's been a long time since I watched that movie. Like elementary school. Yeah.
Oh, Inigo Montoya.
Okay. Yeah.
Inigo Montoya. Yeah. Okay. I like vaguely remember that. I watched that movie not that long ago too. Wow. Okay. Well, looks like I'll have to watch it again. Poor me.
$5 from Aaliyah Shauna Silverbow. Why isn't there a pregnant Barbie doll? Ken came in another box. Why did the snowman? Oh. Okay. I got it.
What?
Let's try that again for your delivery. Why isn't there a pregnant Barbie doll? Ken came in another box. Why did the snowman smile? He saw the snowblower coming. Nice.
I love it. Sex
That was
jokes
pretty
for a
good.
sex coach. That's good. I like it. $5 from Jamnik06. Fond of going in my bedroom, closing the door, then doing whatever the fuck I want. Hashtag party of one. Hashtag no kink shaming. Hashtag team passenger princess. Hashtag cookie snake mom. Agreed. Me too.
$5 from Raven 200. I used to be really scared of snakes as a child, like irrationally scared. Now I want like 6 pet snakes. Arden, Matt, and Arden intensified that desire. Good. I want to make you all addicted to snakes because they're fucking awesome.
$5 from Moonstar. I submit to Cookie Snake. I love it.
Yes. $5 from SJL. Imagine a magic pill so you never had to be atypical, whatever that is. Yes, life would be easier. You also wouldn't be the same person you are now. Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
I mean, yep.
20 pounds from Frimples McDimples. That's a great name. That's really funny. Huge appreciation from the UK. I live an isolated life and have strained relationships with my family as I'm the only atheist. Your channel is a lifesaver. Thanks for everything you do. Thank you for being here. We love you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. $5 from Melatonin Ale. My mom is here, so I'll have to catch the replay, but take my money. Love y'all. Thank you so much, Ale. Appreciate you.
Thank you. $10 from Scout Without Clout. Happy Mardi Gras. Oh, I didn't realize it was Mardi Gras now. I'm enjoying your channel and glad I discovered you guys recently. Looking forward to learning more from Convos on the Line. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Mardi Gras.
Awesome. We've been getting so many new people lately, and I heard from a friend that I want to talk to Jimmy to see if we can stream on Vertical at the same time, because apparently Vertical is great for getting new viewers because it's on people's For You page. So if they're on YouTube just swiping, there's like a chance where you just pop up in front of them randomly, even if we're not like in their algorithm really. He got so many good like kooky callers that way, you know? And I'm like, oh man.
I wish we could also like put these live streams to stream live on TikTok, because like I watch people's live streams on TikTok, like people debating all the time. Like I think it would be great. But
I know we talked about trying to do it both at one time, but yeah. $10 from Janico6. A kiss makes your day, but anal makes your whole week. Nice. Anal makes your whole week. I don't know what the dash is there. My wife is a sex object really because every time I ask for sex, she objects. Nice.
Oh my god.
Aaliyah Shauna started it. Sex jokes for a sex coach.
I like that hashtag. $5 from Jamnik06. Sex with 3 people is called a threesome. Sex with 4 people is called a foursome. I guess now it's clear why everyone calls me handsome. That's good. I like that.
That is really good.
You guys have a lot of these jokes. Oh, thank you so much for everyone joining today. A special thank you to Arden, who hopped in here and is a champ and spent the night with us. And thank you to our producers and our mods and our screeners and our wonderful community. I love you guys so much. You know this. I get like emotional like once a month about how much I love everyone. Everyone, it's time to go to bed. This is like the longest show we've had in a while. You all are welcome. We love you. And see you all next week. Oh, please. Resident yapper. I understand. I love you guys.